It's the When Fishing Podcast. Applying techniques.
Then I put the C rigs on the A rigs.
Bringing fresh ideas.
They can all be good ones.
Talking stories. Reports.
About 5 knots out of the wind.
Conservation.
You're probably too close.
All to make you and I better fishermen. Hello, welcome to the podcast. I haven't posted an episode in a couple weeks. In the meantime, I had been recording some reports from previous weeks, but I just wasn't recording like full episodes. So I'm just going to put those all together at the front of this episode and go from there. So, yeah, enjoy that. It's a full episode for sure. All right. Here goes. Yo, what's up? It's another episode of this bowl. Got a report for you. I liked this report. This was a fun day. I went last Sunday, the day after I recorded the last one, I think. Or was it the same day? I don't remember. I don't think it was the same day. Anyways, so I went out last Sunday, and then I launched. I got to my first fishing grounds in like 300, 400 foot of water at about 8 a.m., and it was kind of an okay tide. It wasn't super swinging. It wasn't the Avalon Swingers ball over in the tide, you know. So, so sorry. And so I started in that, and I've been digging the flukes for the rockfish lately. So I wanted to keep up with that, and I tried the squid, and the squid just got me sand dabs. And then the fluke, I don't remember if I got anything on the fluke. I think I got like two dabs and a mini chili, and I think I hooked the chili on the back or something. I forgot what happened there. Yeah, so that I wasn't gonna keep doing that. So like after an hour, I got the hint, because that area is normally like it's either on or it's like just. Like, what is this? So, yeah, it was off. So I headed in shallower, and then I started to put together a fun little bite. And so, like, the first bite, I got, like, a pretty good-sized sculpin, and I was like, oh, that's, I don't normally keep sculpin because they're a pain in my ass, literally, poisonous and pointy and shit. You got to give them a haircut, and then you got to do all that shit. So I normally just, like, let them go. But I was chomping at the bit for some white meat, so I kept it. And then I didn't really have scissors or proper pliers for the haircut job, so I Kijimade it and then threw it in the kill bag and hoped that I remembered that it was in there, and I did. And then proceeded to like catch a couple like small rockfish, which was just kind of nice to see the variety. And then I got a couple big hits, and one of them turned into a pretty nice sheephead. I weighed it at home on the human scale. I had weighed myself with and without it, and it was like 4 pounds or so, which isn't so bad. And so I kept that one. That was good for a couple dinners on its own, and thought I'd get more whitefish, and ended up with one keeper or like eater whitefish, and then a little sand bass. And I went even shallower and was starting to pick on some sand bass, and picked off a keeper, and was like, okay, like, this is nice changes from one thing to the next. And then my braided line got stuck like in between the inside of the reel, like it got past the spool lip, and that ended the reel for the day. So I normally have a 30-pound jig stick, or like a little UC Mega, and that's like with the SXJ, and like 30-pound braid, and That's kind of stuff, and 30-pound leader pretty much across the board for inshore right now. And that one, and so I normally have two of those. One's like short, one's long, and I didn't have the short one, so I ended the day because I really didn't want to like start poking at the sand bass with like my 60-pound jig stick. That's the only other thing I had, and I was gonna use that for rock fishing, for like lingcod or whatever, and that opportunity just didn't really happen. So yeah, I didn't want to use it on bass, so I didn't, and then I went home, and it was a good day. So yeah, that was nice. And so that fish count for that day was like 14. So that's a nice little day. And then I was getting ready for. I guess I'll get into the game plan. I don't have a fucking. That's all I have. I have last week's report and what I want to do tomorrow. That's it. That's really it. So I shouldn't even be recording this. I could record it tomorrow or the next day. Yeah, you know what? That's smart. I'm gonna play music now. Goodbye, boys. All right, I didn't have enough to say, so I paused and then I went out a couple of times and I came back so that I have something to say. So what did I do? I went looking for the bluefin locally. It was about time to go check out some warm water. There was a warm water bubble coming up my way that was like supposedly in the 63, 64 degree temps when everything else was like 60 to 62 or something like that. And so I went out and looked for it and got off the local shelf and then was immediately greeted by thousands or millions of by the wind sailors, you know, those little blue things with the sail. Looks like a jellyfish, but it's not. And then hundreds of mola sunfish. I've never seen so many. So if you want to see just something kind of cool like that you may have never seen before, go look for some of the warmer water offshore and where you'll find the by the wind sailors, the valela, you'll find the a shitload of sunfish. I saw at least well over 100. Normally, I don't think I've ever seen more than like a dozen in a day, but I definitely saw over 100, and they were all in that like 100, 200 pound class, like with like foot wide fins and all doing the exact same shit. They were all clones of each other. It was really cool. And I think I saw a mink whale, a minky, como se dice, and it was smaller. It only came up once, and by its back, I would guess that it was like maybe like 20 foot long. So I don't know what I'm looking at with that. And if it only comes up once, it's pretty hard to say. But yeah, I think it was a mink, little tiny fin. Yeah, didn't find any bluefin. Didn't find any bait out deep. So I did like a 50-mile loop, and then on the end of the loop, I wasn't really seeing jack shit, and the wind was coming up, and I was very far from home, so I went back. And then the wind died down once I got back on the shelf, and I tried to fish for some bottom critters and tough bite. I mean, it was like close to peak tide, so not a lot of water movement as far as I could tell, and I didn't have any squid, so I was just using flukes, I think, and that was unsuccessful until like my last stop, and then I pulled out a dink calico and called it a day from there. Just wanted to break a skunk because I've come home too many times without jack shit. I went last summer. I think I went between like mid-June and mid-August or something without catching anything because I was just so focused on the pelagics. And this year I want to sort of keep my brain from getting too fried from the pelagic chasing if it's like unsuccessful, you know. So yeah, that was worth a shot. Cool to see some sights. That's how pelagic fishing goes. Sometimes it's better than a totally dead ocean, that happens too. So yeah, and then the next day and then I slept like 16 hours in between that and the next trip. I like got home at like I think I got home at like 2:30 or 3, and then I settled down, and then I started napping at like 4 p.m. and then I woke up at like 9:30 p.m. and my girlfriend got home from work, and then like I made a little dinner. I made I have a shitload of yellowfin tuna from a friend, and so I made some seared tuna with some rice, and then after that I went back to bed at like 10:30, and then I woke up at 10:30. So I don't know where all that sleep needed to happen, but it did. And then like my alarm went off at 5, and I was just like, do I really want to fish for that? Like that was the like when I went at the end of the Bluefin run, I went, and fished sort of top of the tide for the bottom critters or the inshore stuff, and it really wasn't happening, and I knew that there wasn't much current. So then I knew that would be pretty much replicated the next day. So then in the morning I was like, I could go out, but like what for? What are we doing here? So I slept in, and then thought I was just gonna go Grubhub for the rest of the day, and then I got out. I left my apartment and walked over to my car to like drop off my boat shit into my storage unit, and I realized like, oh, it's a nice day. Like the wind still hasn't come up, and it's like 12:30, so that's kind of bizarre. So then I went out for the afternoon tide, which was definitely a stronger tide. So I figured, okay, it's probably worth a look. It's probably going to be good, and then probably not that many people are going to be at like. I bet most people would be like done by like 2, and I'm going to launch at 2. So Memorial Day, it was Memorial Day, and I figured it wouldn't be too much trouble to do that, and it wasn't. I went out and trolled around for bass, and I picked up about 15 in a little less than 3 hours, and just good consistent action and on swim baits, and yeah, I had a nice time. 12 inches up to like 18 inches, like 3-pound range on the sand bass. So that was cool. And like a couple of my shallower spots are starting to kick out some stuff, so that was cool. Good to see that. So good little weekend right there. So yeah, that's the reports for this episode. Bam. So then the next weekend I went out, fished with Jared, brought Jared out. I said, fuck it, we're going to go fuck up some bass. We haven't put together a great day fishing for bass, he and I, but I figured we could put something together based off of the last time, the aforementioned 15 fish day in 3 hours or so. I figured, okay, well, if we get 2 lines in the water and sort of similar current situation, we'll be able to put a lot of fish in the boat. And we did. We probably got out of the harbor around 7:38, and it was a full moon, 100% full. Look at that. I'm reading through the my fishing log. So, cloudy day, 0 to 10 west wind, 2 foot at 12 seconds. Water temp 61 to 63, less than 5 foot clarity. 100% moon phase when the wolves come out. So we were fishing 3-way swim baits, 30-pound leaders. I don't know what he was fishing. I think it was 25, but whatever. It was a good, consistent action. He got a chonk. He sand bass. That was his personal best. It was a big old grump, probably 4 or 5 pounds. Looked ugly as hell. That's the way you want him. all of the Big Hammer colors worked, but also calling you out, Big Hammer. Why were tell me why all the colors were like ripping like at the color changes. Like, you know how they're like the swim baits have, at least like Big Hammer swim baits among other swim baits, they have the color change. They go say like a dark top and then like light bottom and maybe like a strip of a certain color. Well, like a lot of them were like ripping like at the lead head. Like, yeah, that they would just tear in between the colors. So there was clearly like they weren't like you know, they weren't meshed together properly. I don't know. I don't know how to make swim baits. So, you know, I can't provide proper feedback on, hey, you know, if you just did this, Big Hammer, you'd be okay. And they've been fine before. This was the first real time I've had issues with it. I've fished a lot of Big Hammers, but I took a break for a couple of years, so I don't know if there's like a difference in construction quality, manufacturing quality at this point. But that was bugging me and Jared. We were using several different colors, and quite a few of them did that. But they caught fish. So what are you gonna do? So, yeah. Any other notes? Yeah. So 44 fish between the two of us. Good day. And then on the way in, so I had a sabiki rod, and if you know about sabiki rods, they're like the line goes inside of the blank. There's no guides on it, and then at the end there's like a plastic or like rubberish thing for the tip. So then you just like reel your sinker up with it, and you reel the sabiki rig inside of the blank, and then your sinker or whatever just reels right up to the tip. And so instead of a sinker, I had a Lucky Craft. I think it was a pointer, and it was reeled up to the tip, and it was in the PVC rod holder vertical along with all the other rods, and we were riding home, and the next thing I know, there is a seagull stuck to the Lucky Craft, and it's just like flying, and like it's not getting anywhere. It's just flapping its wings and like slapping around the other rods, and like the boat's still driving. I'm on the tiller, and like the seagull is directly over Jared's head on the boat, and he doesn't know what's going. Like I see it, and he can't see it, and I'm just waiting for him to see it. So he's just like, I can see him just kind of like turning his head back and forth, like, what the fuck is that? And then I'm like, hey, over your head. And he looks up, and there's this seagull going nuts. And so I finally pulled the rod out of the holder and unhooked it. And then I just held it for a second and just called it names to make sure that it knew not to do that again. Because you know how seagulls be like. So that was a fun day. Finally had a really, really good day with Jared. We're normally working for it pretty hard, and we did work for it, but we were paid handsomely. So yeah, and then yesterday, and the latest report. So I wanted to take a look for Bluefin, and then if that probably didn't work out, then I would go looking for deep drop black gill, and then maybe move in shallower as the day goes on. So it was glassy conditions to start. I got out at about 6:30 in the morning, and I was out at the channel probably about a little before 8, and then the wind came up right about 8, and it was white caps and super choppy, kind of short period. Not very ideal. It was a following sea, so I was quartering in it, and I have a 4 horsepower motor, so trying to stay at like 10 knots trolling a Yozuri Bonita didn't really work, but I was just kind of hoping in the back of my head, you know, hoping that the varying speed would make it seem like a more natural presentation, because it kind of works out that way. It was probably about 130 yards behind the boat, and I trolled it for about an hour, hour and a half before I got to my rockfish spot. I didn't see birds, bait, or tuna. I saw a couple mola, saw some by the wind sailors, didn't see dolphins, didn't see whales, so didn't work out that time. So then I got to my rockfish spot, and I was like, no fucking way in hell am I dropping 600 plus feet in this wind. So I pulled up in like 300 to 400 foot with a pound of weight, and as long as I was back trolling, it was okay. First drop, 3 pound red. Very nice. And then no bites for like 30 minutes, but the tide, I got there at like 10 a.m., and the tide had turned at 9 a.m. to become an incoming tide. Yeah. And then there was nary a bite for a little bit, and then finally started to pick up, pulled my limit together of Pisons, and then one of them had some scrape marks, looked like a lingosaur came through and took a ride on it. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel no extra weight. It was always a small fish from the start, but gave me some inspiration to go try looking for lingcod. I have a couple chili peppers frozen just for this. Some whole chili peppers, probably like 10, 12 inches. I'm talking about rockfish, not not vegetables. So, yeah, so I'm going to go take a look at that, but that'll be part of the game plan. So, yeah, I pulled together my limit, then headed in shallower. Figured I didn't have any squids, so I tried dropper looping flukes in kind of shallower water, pulled up a double of bass, and my phone charging situation on my boat has just always been a clusterfuck. So charging cables, conventional charging cables, introduce water into the port really easily. So I got these, I might have mentioned them before, and I highly recommend them in general. They're these magnetic charging cables where you put the part of the cable that, like the head of it, that actually goes into the port. You put that into the phone, and it's like a separate piece, and then you just put the magnetic cable up to like the back end of that, and then it just pops on and it starts charging. So I got those so that I wouldn't introduce water into the port, which has been sort of smart. I suppose, yeah, that's been a good idea. But then the next issue is that that little magnet just kind of pops off. It sits like right under my seat, and on my seat, I have like a sort of, I think it's like a leather or faux leather seat that's folding, and there's a little strap to like button the seat closed once you fold it down. I need to cut that off because it slaps the charging cable out of its spot. And then my charging bank, I just replaced it, and that, like, both of the one that I just replaced and this one just seem to like turn off after a couple minutes if they're not charging anything. And so if I slap it off, then it doesn't charge, and then, you know. And so for some reason it wasn't charging. So I guess the charging head was broke or like faulty or defective, whatever you want to call it, como se dice. And so I wasn't getting a charge. So then I was down to like 7% battery by like 11 a.m. And so I headed for some shallow water with like a lot of hard bottom and decided to just troll across it for my last ditch effort for the day. And I picked off a couple short bass and a little tiny brown rockfish, and that was it. But it was super choppy. And it was I got soaked. So, but it was, you know, checked out a lot of different stuff, a lot of different types of water. So that was cool. Good day. So last part of the day of the episode is the game plan? What's the game plan? Well, taking a look at the Wild Windy app, which, by the way, I'm going to do a webinar with them soon. And then I'll put some of that conversation up into the podcast, and they'll put the webinar up on their social media on YouTube. Stay tuned for that. We're going to go over, the features from the app that are particularly of value for fishermen. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, you can pick up a free month of the Pro membership for the Windy app if you use discount code JROD, JROD. Isn't that cool? Ain't that something? So, yeah, I just, I've been using it for tides, and I like it for, the wind is generally pretty accurate. And then on top of that, if there is reason for a lot of variance, you can compare models of different wind models. So you can compare like 6 wind models or more, and see what the variance is, and you can decide from there, like, oh, there's, if they're all pretty consistent, then you can expect what you're expecting. And if they're like wildly varying, then like don't put all your chips in one thing, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you're thinking, small boat, like way offshore, like, and you can compare different models all in the same app instead of, checking a bunch of different apps. So it's cool like that. I like that. I'm all in on Windy. So yeah, so check that out. Go use that promo code if you aren't a pro user already. So I've been one for a little bit. So that being said, what's the game plan? Tomorrow looks good. I'm kind of thinking about going out tomorrow. I'm not sure yet, but like there's not a whole ton of current. There's a 5:50 high tide, 11:35 low tide, pretty manageable swell at 2.5 foot at 11 seconds. Water temps are holding steady around 62 to 64. Wind won't come up till about noon. I'm thinking about doing my deep dropping that day. So what I'm really thinking about for the rest of the week, or really the rest of June, is I want to deep drop successfully. So I want to get my black gill rockfish, potentially sablefish, and thorny heads, get those out of the way. My Avid EX30 is currently filled with a shitload of 50-pound braid, specifically for deep dropping. And once I acquire those targets, I would like to switch that Avid EX30 over to pelagic duties with a 100-pound braid. So I think we're coming in hot into pelagic season. We're pretty much in it, so I really need to like get this done. Otherwise, put it away. But the reason I like the Avid EX for this is that it's got the T-bar handle, and just there's a lot of torque in there in general. So when you're reeling up, 16, 24, 32 ounces of weight, it's not so hard, because with the little like ball handles that I was using before, I was using an Okuma SLX, and it was okay, but definitely, even though it's a big reel, it should have a lot of torque. It was taxing on my hand. I had to take breaks on the way up for like a 900-foot drop. And for the Avid EX, I was able to reel up like 1,200 feet like consistently without a break. So that's a fun little thing. So yeah, I wanna get that out of the way. Maybe hit that like Monday and or Wednesday, and then Wednesday through Friday looks really good. Current starts to pick up. So another thing that I've been while I've been chatting with the Windy app folks, they brought up the fishing centric layout. And I've been working with my own custom layout, which I look at the wind, direction, speed, air temp, water temp, cloudy versus sunny, precipitation, moon phase, swell height and direction, swell period, tide, and then I just added the current, speed, and direction. And so in my area, that speed is generally between 0.1 and 0.5 miles an hour. And I did find in the last couple weeks that when I focused on those times when it was in the 0.5 miles an hour, it was a more consistent bite. So, and it didn't always line up with the tide as I would have thought. So sometimes sometimes the wind adds to it, and sometimes it doesn't. I'm not sure where that comes from. I'm not an oceanographer. I just look at the Windy app all the goddamn time. So I live on this thing. So yeah, Wednesday through Friday, we got tides that are like okay, so low tide 2 a.m., high tide 8 a.m. on Wednesday. And then kind of a slackish 8 a.m. high to a 1 p.m. low, where there's going to be like 1.8 feet of water movement. But that morning, it's going to be 0.4 mile an hour current. So I think hit that with the deep drop. And then Thursday, it's a 0.5 miles an hour current. Friday drops a little bit, but in the afternoon it's going to be flying. And then, so I think Wednesday, Thursday, killer. So once I get the deep drop out of the way, I want to head inside. I've been keeping my eye out for threshers. I haven't heard much about it this year. Last year, I remember it kind of popped off, and I don't know, I wasn't prepared for it, or other things were going on. And so I never fished for them once last year, when the year before I tried a bunch of times and failed miserably. But this time I haven't seen anything on the inside. Normally, the conventional wisdom is look for the threshers inside of like a half mile of the beach. And I haven't seen any birds or bait really working within a half mile of the beach all season. But I have seen a ton of bait, mostly anchovies, in 40 to 120, 150 feet of water. So what I'm thinking now is that once I get the deep drop out of the way, then I'll just troll around for mackerel. Once I find and catch the mackerel, put one on the bottom for halibut, one up top for threshers. Or both could be for threshers. Who knows what the fuck's going on. And from there, just keep trolling, keep catching mackerel, keep an eye out for threshers. And then get one. And then from there, move on to the tuna. Because the tuna, they're here. Hopefully they'll pop in with some coastal action in the next month or two. Seems to be like real bluefin season around here locally, like June, July. And then August, like other things start to pop up. And the tuna are in state waters, but they're kind of like more on the outside or something behind Catalina or whatever. So we'll see what happens. But that's what I'm thinking. Deep dropping and then threshers. So, and I got to try for the lingcod. God damn it. Too many things to do. So little time. But it's all fair game. It's all fair game right now. Water temps have warmed up. The bass fishing is consistent, as I have stated. The tuna are in state waters. It's an exciting time to be alive. So get out there, folks. Use that promo code. You'll be hearing more about that in the coming weeks. So stay tuned. Good luck out there and be safe.